Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Radha Gopi Jana Ballava Giri Bharadhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giri Bharadhare Jana Ballava Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Ballava Giri Bharadhare Gopi Jana Ballava Giri Bharadhare Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jayam Vishnupad Paramaham Saparvrajacharya Tadasismad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki, Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Sankirtan Yagya Ki, Gaur Premanande. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to their Samo devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So devotees, this morning we're reading from Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 16, the Lord's attempt to go to Vrindavan. And we will begin by reading verse 216. And well, just a little background. Lord Chaitanya has come, he's on his way. He's on his way. He wants to go to Vrindavan. Chapter has the interesting title, The Lord's Attempt to go to Vrindavan. So, a little spoiler, he's not going to make it this time, but he's really trying. He really wants to. And he starts from Jagannath Puri. Then, if you recall, he then passed into the kingdom of, or the area controlled by the very sort of aggressive Muslim governor who became converted or somehow or other became Krishna conscious and gave the Lord great assistance and protection and so on. And so the Lord then passed through and entered Bengal and went to Panihati. We talked about that last week. And now Lord Chaitanya has gone. He went up to Ramakeli. Yes, right, Ramakeli. And then, which is up in the north, and then he came back down to Shantipur, the place of Advaita Acharya. So, right now, we have arrived, Lord Chaitanya has arrived in Shantipur. Shantipur is not too far from Mayapur. It's sort of 30 kilometers or something, or perhaps a bit more. And it's a little south. It's on the way back to Calcutta, basically, from Mayapur. Mayapur being 100 and something, a little over 100 kilometers north of Calcutta. Yes, so here we are now, arriving in Shantipur. Punarapi Prabhu Yadi, Shantipura Aila, Raghunatha Dasa Asi, Prabhure Milila. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Shantipur, Raghunath Das came to meet him. Raghunath Das was living in the Panihati area, more or less, or in that vicinity. 217. Hiranya Govardhana Dui Sahodara Saptagrame Baralaksha Mudrara Ishvara. 2 brothers named Hiranya and Govardhan, who were residents of Saptagram, had an annual income of 1,200,000 rupees. Or, well, actually, yeah, it's Baralaksha in the Bengali means 1,200,000, 12 lakhs. Yes. Yes, so let us read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Hiranya and Govardhan were inhabitants of Saptagram in the district of Hooghly. Actually, they were inhabitants not of Saptagram, but of a nearby village named Krishnapur. They took their birth in a big Kayasta family, and although their family title has not been ascertained, it is known that they came from an aristocratic family. The elder brother's name was Hiranya Majumdara, and the younger brother's name was Govardhan Majumdara. Sri Raghunath Das was the son of Govardhan Majumdara. Their family priest was Balaram Acharya, who was a favorite of Haridas Thakur's, and the family's spiritual master was Yadunandan Acharya, a favorite of Vasudev Dutt's. So these are great devotees. Anyone who's a favorite of Haridas Thakur, sure, has to be quite a devotee. And anyone who's a favorite of Vasudev Dutt also has to be quite a devotee. The village of Saptagram is located on the Eastern Railway from Calcutta to Burdwan, and presently the railway station is called Trishabigha. In those days there was a large river there known as the Saraswati, and present-day Trishabigha is a great port. In 1592, the Patanas invaded. Patanas means sort of, they're Muslims, but Patanas, I think they're more like Turkish Muslims, something like that. So in 1592, the Patanas invaded, and due to a flooding of the Saraswati River in the year 1632, this great port was partially destroyed. It is said that in the 17th and 18th centuries, Portuguese businessmen used to come aboard their ships. In those days, Saptagram, situated on the southern side of Bengal, was very rich and popular. The merchants who were the principal residents were called Saptagram Suvarna Vaniks. There were very many rich people there, and Hiranya Majumadara and Govardhan Majumadara belonged to the Kayasta community. They also were very rich, so much so that it is mentioned in this verse that their annual income as landlords amounted to 1,200,000 rupees, otherwise known as 12 lakhs, 12 lakhs. In this connection, one may refer to Adi Leela, chapter 11, verse 41, which describes Udaran Dat, who also belonged to the Saptagrami Suvarna Vanik community. Okay, well, that's historical background. Port in the 17th and 18th centuries means the 1600s and the 1700s, according to the way we describe time. The Portuguese businessmen used to come. The Portuguese of the Europeans, the Portuguese, as I understand, were the first in Bengal before the British. The British were later. And there are descriptions in Portuguese histories of, just toss out some of these cushions. Yeah, there are descriptions in some Portuguese histories of Lord Caitanya. I mean, mentions, put it that way, of Lord Caitanya in some Portuguese literatures describing the situation in Bengal. Is everyone okay? Look at this beautiful pillow here, just crying out to be engaged in someone's service. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, it was more just historical background there. The Muslims started invading India, as I understand, from about the Western year 1000. And they would come and go and come and go and come and go, and, sure, it was not nice. But then eventually at some point, maybe like 12 or 1300 something, then they started to really establish themselves and sort of move in and take over. But anyway, Hiranya and Govardhan Majumadara, Lord Chaitanya's uncle and father, they were kayastas, means in Bengal at least they're business people, landlords. They're earning 1,200,000 rupees per annum, plus or minus 500 years ago, which is a lot, by today's standards. It's really, really, sure, millions and millions of dollars or rands. Maheshvarya Yukta Dunhe Vadanya Brahmanya Sadachari Satkulina Dharmikagra Ganya. Both Hiranya Majumdar and Govardhan Majumdar were very opulent and magnanimous. They were well behaved and devoted to Brahminical culture. They belonged to an aristocratic family, and among religionists, they were predominant. Yeah. You know, in the histories, there's so many people like this. Wealthy business people like Vaishyas or Kshatriyas, or sort of mixed Vaishya Kshatriya. Very wealthy but very religious, and really gave support in the communities. Nadiyavasi Brahmanera Upajivya Praya Artabhumi Gramadiya Karena Sahaya. Practically all the Brahmins residing in Nadia were dependent on the charity of Hiranya and Govardhan, who gave them money, land, and villages. Purport. Although Navadvip was very opulent and populous during Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, practically all the Brahmins depended on the charity of Hiranya and Govardhan. Because the brothers highly respected the Brahmins, they very liberally gave them money. .220 Nilambara Chakravarti Aradhya Dunhara Chakravarti Kare Dunhai Bratri Vyavahaya. Nilambara Chakravarti, the grandfather of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was much worshipped by the two brothers. But Nilambara Chakravarti used to treat them as his own brothers. Because Nilambara Chakravarti is a Brahmin, and he's sort of like higher level Brahmin, famous Brahmin. And Hiranya and Govardhan Majumdar, they're not Brahmins. They're Kayastas, basically means Vaishya. So they worshipped Nilambara Chakravarti, this great, very prominent Brahmin, but his consciousness was such that he treated them as his brothers. Mishra Purandarera Purve Karyachena Sevane Ataeva Prabhu Bala Jane Dui Jane. Formerly, these two brothers had rendered much service to Mishra Purandara, the father of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because of this, the Lord knew them very well. So, Mishra Purandara is Jagannath Mishra, who's Lord Chaitanya's father, of course. So, he knew them very well. Because Jagannath Mishra was also a very prominent member of the Brahmin community in the Navadvip area. And so Hiranya and Govardhan would associate with him and with Lord Chaitanya, and they would give financial support. Se Govardhanera Putra Raghunatha Dasa Balyakala Haite Tenho Vishaye Udasa. Raghunath Das was the son of Govardhan Majumdara, from childhood, he was uninterested in material enjoyment. Because Raghunath Das, he is, I forget exactly which one, but he's one of the Manjaris. As he is one of the 6 Goswamis, each one of them is a Manjari, so he's one of the prominent Manjaris, and as such, he's a transcendental personality and not just into being a big Vaishya Kayasta, wheeler-dealer, landlord, businessman. So his transcendental nature shone through, yes, as one of the Manjaris, one of the most prominent gopis. Of course, he's got no interest in just being a materialist and accumulating money and living in extravagant ways. Sannyasakari Prabhu Yabe Shantipura Aila Tabe Asi Raghunatha Prabhu Re Milila. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Shantipur after accepting the renounced order, Raghunath Das met him. Yes. Yeah, Lord Chaitanya, he left home in Navadvip one night, in the middle of the night, and went to Katwa. First of all, he went up, just some distance from Navadvip, not so far, but it's probably it might be 10 kilometers or several kilometers, something like that. And then they swam, he and Lord Nityananda and Chandrasekhar and a couple of others, they swam across the Ganges and then walked up to Katwa. Oh, this is overnight, and arrived in the ashram of Keshava Bharati, like early morning, and Lord Chaitanya just told Keshav Bharati, please give me sannyas. Lord Chaitanya's 24 years old, not, by normal standards, not sort of sannyas material, because you got to be older. I mean, that's the general idea. Having been through it all and come out on the other side, having had enough, that sort of thing, then a person could take sannyas. But Keshava Bharati objected that you're too young. You're too young and you're too handsome. And he knew who Lord Chaitanya was. And, you've got a wife. And your mother is there. And you're the only child around, at least, still at home. So I can't give you sannyas. But Lord Chaitanya insisted. And it's quite a long story. We must sometime, when the anniversary comes, which is more like January time, we can go through the whole thing in detail, but it's really quite amazing. And the people gathered in Katwa. Katwa is not a city. I mean, no, it's not really a city. It's not a city. but it's a substantial town. And the people found out, and the people gathered. And there's Lord Caitanya, extremely, not just handsome, but beautiful, actually. And he's insisting on getting sannyas and shaving his head and, just renouncing everything. And the people gathered and gathered and gathered. And there's Keshav Bharati objecting, and then the people started objecting too. And they told Keshav Bharati that you give him sannyas, we will throw you in the Ganges. And then it continued back and forth. And they said, you give him sannyas, we will take your ashram apart, brick by brick, and throw it in the Ganges with you. But Lord Caitanya insisted, and he appealed to the people. It's really quite a major pastime. And eventually, there was one Baba named Madhava, who Lord Caitanya ordered him, shave my head. And the Baba wouldn't do it, and Lord Caitanya insisted more and more. And eventually the Baba agreed, and then so he sort of gets himself together. Lord Chaitanya's waiting there to have his head shaved. And the Baba says, I can't, because I'm crying so much I can't see through the tears. And Lord Caitanya told him, just shave my head. And the Baba started. And when he cut the first hair, the actual first hair, then 1,000,000 tears fell to the ground from all the assembled people. So it was really, really quite something. I mean, that's just not even a 20th of it. But then, immediately after, Lord Caitanya returned to Shantipur, which is another story that Lord Caitanya told Lord Nityananda. Lord Caitanya was in ecstasy. He'd never been to Vrindavan. He wanted to go to Vrindavan. So he told Lord Nityananda, just find the road to Vrindavan and take me. But Lord Nityananda took him on the road back to Navadvipa and back to Shantipur. And all the time he's telling Lord Caitanya, yes, Vrindavan's just coming up, won't be long, but they're going in the opposite direction. And eventually, they're following the Ganges, and eventually Advaita Acharya comes from Shantipur to meet them on a boat. And Lord Caitanya, Lord Nityananda is saying, now we're almost there, and there are cowherd boys on the way. Lord Nityananda runs ahead and tells the cowherd boys, just tell him that this is the road to Vrindavan, and gives them a couple of rupees. And so they tell Lord Caitanya, yes, you're almost there. And then suddenly Advaita Acharya appears on a boat. And Lord Caitanya said, what are you doing in Vrindavan? And then Advaita Acharya told him, actually, you're moving in the opposite direction. We are almost in Shantipur. And Lord Caitanya got pretty upset with Lord Nityananda. But they got over it. you know, when there's transcendental appreciation and affection, there's almost no limit to what you can get over if the need arises. Yeah, which, you know, sometimes it does. Prabhura charane pade, prema vishtahana, Prabhupada sparsha kaila, karuna kariya. When Raghunath Das went to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he fell at the Lord's lotus feet in ecstatic love. Showing him mercy, the Lord touched him with his feet. You know, we had a little while, not long ago, a few weeks, it was the Panihati festival, chipped rice and yogurt. And there, that's, Panihati. Lord Nityananda and his followers came to Panihati, and Raghunath Das came to see Lord Nityananda. That's before this, I assume. And when Raghunath Das came to meet Lord Nityananda, he offered obeisances from a distance. You may remember the description. And Lord Nityananda saw Raghunath Das, you know, a little way away, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 meters or something. And he said, "Who's that?" And someone said, "Oh, that's Raghunath Das offering obeisances." So Lord Nityananda called him, come here, you thief. Why are you keeping your association away from us?" And Raghunath Das came right up to him, bowed down, and Lord Nityananda just put both his feet on his head, just boom. Because Lord Nityananda is more like that. No, you wouldn't say flamboyant, but he's more sort of, I don't know, expressive in a sense. So when it says here that Lord Chaitanya touched Raghunath Das with his feet, it's a little, that's something special. Because Lord Chaitanya is more, apparently conservative or like that, not as expressive, perhaps, externally, as Lord Nityananda usually. Tanrapita sadakare acharya sevana ataeva acharya tanre haila parasana. Raghunath Das's father Govardhan always rendered much service to Advaita Acharya. Consequently, Advaita Acharya was very pleased with the family. Yes. Acharya Prasade Paila Prabhu Uchishta Pata Prabhura Charanadeki Dina Panchasata. When Raghunath Das was there, Advaita Acharya favored him by giving him the food remnants left by the Lord. Raghunath Das was thus engaged for 5 or 7 days in rendering service to the Lord's lotus feet. So this is in Shantipur, and there's the whole establishment there. It's not that big, but it's some quite, fair size of Advaita Acharya's place. It's very nice. Beautiful deity of Advaita Acharya. And a number of other places and things in the compound. Prabhu Tanre Vidya Dia Gela Nilachala Tenho Gare Asihaila Premete Pagala. After bidding farewell to Raghunath Das, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri. after returning home, Raghunath Das became mad with ecstatic love. So the thing is, we read that Lord Chaitanya went to Ramakeli, which is North Bengal. Then he went west to, what's the name of the place? What's the name of the place? To somewhere. Oh, Krishna. The road to Ramakeli. Caitanya Caritamrita. Lord Chaitanya went that far. And then he stopped. It's on the way to Vrindavan from Ramakeli, from Bengal. But then Lord Chaitanya stopped and turned around and came back. And now he's in Shantipur on the way back. And so, So Raghunath Das comes and meets Lord Chaitanya at Shantipur, at the place, sort of the ashram of Advaita Acharya. Bara bara palayatenho niladri yaite pitatanre bandirake anipata haite. Raghunath Das used to run away from home again and again to go to Jagannath Puri. But his father kept binding him and bringing him back. So Raghunath Das, he met Lord Nityananda, and then he met Lord Chaitanya, and he really wanted to just give up his family life and his business life and all the opulence and trappings and just everything, all the responsibilities, you could say, and go to Puri and join Lord Chaitanya. So he would run away. But his father had a whole team watching him. And they would actually sometimes tie him up. Now you must know, when you got to tie someone up, well, that's the Damodar Leela, I guess, but this is a little different. Because they want to go and join Krishna consciousness. But you have to tie them up, then it's going a bit too far. Yes. Panchapaika tanre rake, Panchapaika tanre rake ratri dine, Chari sevak dui brahman, rahe tanra sane. His father even had 5 watchmen guard him day and night. 4 personal servants were employed to look after his comfort, and 2 Brahmins were employed to cook for him. So it's a team that's 5 and 4 and 2. That's 11 people. Yeah. Ekadasha janatanre rake nirantara, nilachale yaite napaya, dukita antara. In this way, 11 people were incessantly keeping Raghunath Das under control. Thus he could not go to Jagannath Puri, and because of this, he was very unhappy. Ebiyadi Mahaprabhu Shantipura Aila, Shunya Pitare Raghunatha Nivedila. When Raghunath Das learned that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived at Shantipur, he submitted a request to his father. Agyadeha yanadeki prabhuracharana anyata narahe mora sharire jivana. Raghunath Das asked his father, please give me permission to go see the lotus feet of the Lord. If you do not, my life will not remain within this body. Shunitanra pitabahu lokadravya diya pataila balishigra asiha piriya. Hearing this request, Raghunath Das's father agreed. Giving him many servants and materials, the father sent him to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, requesting him to return soon. Now, this is from in the vicinity of Panihati to Shantipur. It's, I suppose, 50 kilometers. It must be around 50 kilometers. Satadina Shantipure Prabhu Sange Rahe Ratre Divase E Man Mana Katakahe. For 7 days, Raghunath Das associated with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in Shantipur. During those days and nights, he had the following thoughts. Rakshakera Hate Muni Kamane Chutiba Kamane Prabhura Sange Nila Chale Yaba Yaha. Raghunath Das thought, how shall I be able to get free from the hands of the watchmen? How shall I be able to go with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to Nilachala? You know, sometimes it happens with young devotees. How will I be able to join the Radha Radhanath temple? Oh, how am I going to do it? It's special to live in the Radha Radhanath temple. Sure. Out of how many, a couple of few million people in Durban, what do we got, 25 or something? 25, it's point something of 1% of the population. Special people who've got such fantastic mercy. Inconceivable. Sarvagya Gauranga Prabhu, Janitan Ramana, Shiksharupe Kahetanre, Ashvasa Vachana. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was omniscient, he could understand Raghunath Das's mind. The Lord therefore instructed him with the following reassuring words. Stirahana gareyao, nahao vatula, krame krame payaloka, bhava kula. Be patient and return home. Don't be a crazy fellow. By and by, you'll be able to cross the ocean of material existence and stay in the Radha Radhanath temple. No, wait. That doesn't say that. But anyway, you understand. Okay, here's a little purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-58, Samashrita ye padapalava plavam, mahatpadam punya yasho marare, bhavam bodhya vatsa padam param padam yad vipadam natesham. This material world is just like a big ocean. It begins with Brahmaloka and extends to Patala Loka. And there are many planets or islands in this ocean. Not knowing about devotional service, the living entity wanders about this ocean, just as a man tries to swim to reach the shore. Our struggle for existence is similar to this. Everyone is trying to get out of the ocean of material existence. One cannot immediately reach the coast, but if one endeavors, he can cross the ocean by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. One may be very eager to cross this ocean, but he cannot attain success by acting like a madman. He must swim over the ocean very patiently and intelligently under the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu or his representative. Then, one day, he will reach the shore and return home back to Godhead. Very encouraging words. So anyone who's staying in the Radharadhanath temple has got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. True. It's true. Definitely. Yeah. Because if you just become like a fanatic and just sort of go a bit wild about it, it may not work so well. It will not work so well. So therefore Prabhupada says we must cross this material ocean very patiently and intelligently under the instructions of Lord Chaitanya or his representative. This is what we need to do. And then we'll be able to cross. Not that it's necessarily just going to be easy, but we'll be able, by that mercy, we'll be able to cross. So now the next verse is a very nice verse. It's got a long purport. So I think we'll finish here. We'll finish here, yes. Any comment or question? Murray. Mother Rukmini.
I was thinking that the point that you made about the Baba Madhava and how when the first strand of Lord Chaitanya's hair fell
Right.
into the million tears. And I was wondering why renunciation seems to be more difficult to watch than for those who are actually going through it.
Well, Mother Rukmini has raised this point about the pastime we mentioned with the Baba Madhava and the cutting of the first hair from Lord Chaitanya's head, the very first strand, the very first hair, and how 1,000,000 tears fell to the ground. And how is it that renunciation may be more difficult to watch than to do, is it?
Yes.
Something like that. You know, I don't think it's really easy for anyone unless they've got some mercy. And people who haven't got mercy, they look at it and it's shocking. It's like, you know, you could say it's like watching a person die, or not even just die, perhaps, but commit suicide. Yeah. And that's shocking. But I would say, you know, in an audience of materially attached people, that renunciation of the world, they cannot comprehend it, the value of it. And it's sort of like, you know, someone committing suicide. It makes no sense, and so much pain, and it's so shocking and just so ghastly, and it's something like that. something like that. But for one who's got some mercy which includes, or else you could say along with, some realization, some determination, then that renunciation is just like, it's nectar. It's amazing. So for people who've got some mercy, it's nice. Not so much now, but back in the old days, like really back in the old days, when there were a lot of hippies or, that's just young people who kind of aimless in material terms. We used to just pounce on them and tell them, come on, join the temple. Get into it, it's great. And because they were aimless, it wasn't, at least for a fair number, it wasn't such a big deal. I remember when I joined the temple, there was a group of us, like I'd say about 5, maybe 6 young men we'd all moved into the temple within, I would say, a month of each other. Within a month, 5 or 6 of us, and shaved our heads and etc., and we were really, going for it. So there was some determination, some realization, some frustration with material existence, plus then some mercy from the Lord to see that this is really like a viable thing. To a lot of people, renunciation seems not to be viable. What is it? It's not like a viable career path, something like that. Therefore, of course they wouldn't do it themselves, but they feel a bit shocked when they see people doing it. So in other words, I don't know if it's really so accurate to say that renunciation is easier to do than to watch, if that's what you're saying. For someone who's got some mercy, some realization and mercy, then renunciation is very obviously a viable thing. For someone who hasn't got some realization, and particularly who hasn't really got mercy, it's like, just a dead-end street. It's nowhere. But of course the devotees find out as they get into it and really practice and surrender and give their hearts and feel the mercy and feel the reciprocation, then the devotees feel that this is just wonderful. It's the only thing. Nothing else can come anywhere near this. And therefore, it's, you could say, easy for them, like that, nice for them, something like that. I don't know if I'm addressing your point, but some thoughts. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.